Tennessee has hired Josh Heupel. As I said, we've already done a full reaction video on it, but it's been about 36 hours now, so I want to revisit it. Tennessee fan and non-Tennessee fan who just watches the show, how are you feeling about it now? Has your opinion changed? Has your mood changed at all? You know, if you watch Late Kick, and we've been through quite a few coaching hires together now, you know that we kind of resist doing the classical grading of a new hire. We don't really handle it that way. I certainly have a lot to say, but I don't do the this is a home run or, this is a failure, B-, that sort of deal. And the reason that I changed that philosophy a few years ago is just from the simple realization that there are so many additional moving parts in these equations, some of which a head coach is not really going to have firm control of. So you can be the best in the world. If you get hired into a toxic environment, it's probably going to put a pretty low ceiling on what your potential is. But that whole philosophy of not grading the hire to begin with, it doubly applies here. Because here is the reality. And this is where we just got to be real with each other. None of us knows what the future holds when it comes to NCAA sanctions for Tennessee. You don't know, I don't care what message board you're a member of, I don't care which athletic department your cousin works for, you don't know and I don't know. Now the guy who can come the closest to knowing is Danny White, the athletic director, probably even more so at this point than a chancellor or a president because he has now intimate day-to-day knowledge. He knows what the deck holds right now. For us to even try grading this hire properly, we would need that entire picture. For obvious reasons, we're not going to get the entire picture. But here's what I need to know as a result. So because I can't know the full picture of what may be coming down the road from the NCAA side of things, here's what, with my limited knowledge, I do want to know about Josh Heupel. Again, to extend on our rapid reaction video from yesterday. I need to know, obviously, what kind of staff is he going to put together, but I kind of need to know, with that staff that he eventually gets in place, can they stabilize the roster? And I don't just mean immediately. You got a lot of guys in the transfer portal. A lot of guys have already left. I'm talking about 2021, 22, when we get to 2023. Let's kind of use that 2 to 3 year down the road thinking. What's the roster they're going to look like? I mean, is it like dragging people over broken glass to get them to want to play for Tennessee? You're going to have just a revolving door of the transfer portal, or are you going to be able to convince the right kind of guys to play, build a solid nucleus? It's not going to be Alabama or anything like that, but build a solid nucleus and win the transfer portal and maybe get creative with name, image, and likeness to where in 2023, things aren't nearly as dire, maybe even with sanctions in place, as you thought they would be. Number 2, or 3, I guess, is the offense going to click? I mean, if you're bad, but I heard Bud Elliott say this the other day. He's dead on the money. You can't be bad and be boring. That'd be one or the other. You can be good and boring, and they'll go for it all day. If you're going to be bad, at least make it interesting. At least go down firing. No one wants to see you run I formation on 3rd and 17, down 4 touchdowns. No one wants to see that. So he's an offensive guy, is Josh Heupel. You got to imagine if there's nothing else they specialize in, at least they'll specialize in that. And then here's the 4th one. This kind of has very little to do with Josh Heupel. It's a Danny White thing, the athletic director. Can he overturn the topsoil? There are a lot of elements involved at Tennessee that have been part of the reason that they are where they are right now. This was not just a Jeremy Pruitt thing, because if you're going to look me in the eye, and to be honest, if Jeremy Pruitt's representation's listening, here's some free advice for you. If you were looking me in the eye, and you're Tennessee, and I'm Jeremy Pruitt, I guess the lawyer's sitting over here somewhere, and you were to tell me this is all your fault, you didn't run this thing, you let things get out of control, I would say to you, okay, well, where was the oversight to where you let me apparently run this program single-handedly into the ditch with no institutional control? Isn't that sort of in your wheelhouse? Isn't that sort of above my pay grade? Shouldn't there be checks and balances in place where I'm not allowed to run things off the rails? But as we always talk about, it's a lot easier to blame someone else than to blame the mirror. So now we got a new athletic director in town. He's got to overturn the topsoil. Whatever was the cause of the problem, you got to fix it. Whichever people are in the room that don't need to be in the room, you got to get them out of the room. So if the answers to those questions are yes, if we get a good hire in there that can stabilize the roster, offense does click, Danny White can overturn the topsoil, the fan base remains engaged is another key aspect. If all those things happen, then the long view could make it such that even if sanctions are handed down, we're in a lot better place 2 or 3 years from now than we thought we would be. And that's the key question. Yeah, I know we're talking about schedule later, so everyone wants to know, what's Tennessee going to be in year one? I want to know what they're going to be in 2023 because that takes into account whatever the NCAA is going to do. Now, we can keep our fingers crossed that it sounds a lot worse than it is, but if the expectation becomes reality, what are they going to be in 2023? Because you could deal down the same set of sanctions, and scenario A versus scenario B could look radically different based on the quality of the hire that was just made. And then, and only then, will I really feel comfortable putting a grade on the hire of Josh Heupel.